There are a handful of brands that have done an exceptional job when it comes to new releases, even though, if you're honest, overall it has been a quiet year in the world of watches so far. Nevertheless, as of today, these are the brands that, at least in my opinion, stand out as the biggest winners of 2026, at least for now. The first brand is one that to me was invisible until 2023, but then released what I believe was a true breakthrough move for them. Since then, it has kept up that momentum and has not disappointed in 2026 either. While Mido was for a long time, in my mind, just another affordable entry-level watch brand that honestly did not really feel a clear gap in the market. But for me, that changed in 2023 when they released the Mido Multi-Fourth, which, by the way, is a watch that I personally own. Since then, Mido has continued releasing watches that genuinely deserve more attention, with two standout examples being the Mido Multi-Fourth Single Crown and the recently released Mido Ocean Star 200. I actually did a full review of the Multi-Fourth Single Crown watch, for which I personally asked the brand if they could send me a sample, because it was really a watch that I genuinely liked, and I really wanted to get a closer look and experience it in real. Well, once I had the watch in my hands, I was genuinely impressed by how well Mido executed such a complex case and bracelet, which is something you rarely see at this price point. Because the thing is, often the more affordable the watch and the more complex the design, the more visible the compromises become, but that was not the case at all there. The best part yet is that they still offer this level of quality at around half the price of a Login or many other watches positioned above them. And so does the recently released Ocean Star 200, which again honestly rocks in all aspects. With a super clean design, a lot of playful contrast without really overpowering the watch, and again with a level of quality that is honestly very difficult to find at this price point. While the second brand is currently receiving a lot of praise, even though some people online suspect it's because of paid content. It is a brand that has gone through an incredible transformation in a very short period of time, and honestly, the way they reinvented themselves is something that deserves to be studied. I actually think Raymond Weil has one of the most interesting turnaround stories in the industry right now, or at least is one of them. Whenever I came across Raymond Weil watches, I often felt it is more like a brand you would find in a Swiss souvenir shop. But over the past few years, that has completely changed, because instead of introducing a few new models while keeping everything else, Raymond Weil has done something much more difficult. And for me, nothing represents that transformation better than the recently released Art line. With its wearable 38mm case, just 9.95mm thickness, reliable 4 Hz Celita movement, and an impressive 100 meter of water resistance. By the way, reaching 100 meter water resistance is a specification that even many way more expensive brands struggle to achieve with such a slim height. And I think this is exactly why the transformation has been so successful. Instead, the brand has focused on proportions, everyday wearability, and timeless design, all of that at an affordable price. The next brand has always enjoyed enormous respect among collectors and enthusiasts, but to be honest, never truly resonated with people outside the watch community. Well, I think their latest releases might finally change that, or at least it looks promising. As I was looking at the latest JLC releases, one thing became very clear to me. This year was not about creating something completely new or something mind-blowing or flashy, but about making JLC more emotionally accessible to an audience beyond the traditional watch community. JLC was a brand that people appreciated once they understood its importance, but not always a brand that immediately connected with people who were simply looking to buy their first serious luxury watch. You needed to know about the movement, you needed to know about the history, you needed to understand the craftsmanship behind the watch. And this is where I think the new Master Control takes an important step, because it moves JLC into a direction where the watch does need an explanation anymore. The design, the proportions, finishing, and the overall elegance speak for themselves and create an immediate connection, even with someone who is not deeply involved in watches. And the new one is still a true JLC with all the technical excellence and heritage behind it. Because the thing is, looking at the JLC history, the capability was never really the question, since the brand has always had the knowledge, the movements, and the craftsmanship. I think the challenge was bringing that excellence closer to a wider audience without needing full explanation or an essay for someone to understand why it matters. Well, another brand that in my view is currently winning massively is a brand that for a long time was carried by its sister company and was seen as not more than an alternative. But their latest releases seem to be exactly what was needed to change that perception. As I was filming the novelties at the Tudor booth for the 5th year in a row, one thing became very clear to me. This year's releases were all about repositioning the brand, because in my opinion, Tudor addressed 3 important areas. Moving further towards an independent identity, reducing the gap between collections, and continuing to refine the Black Bay, which remains their most important line. However, the biggest challenge Tudor has always faced is that its identity was strongly connected to Rolex. And I think the answer came with the Monarch. For me, this was one of the most interesting releases because it represents something Tudor has rarely done, stepping outside its established design language. So I would not be surprised if in the future we see more and more Tudor watches moving away from that Rolex-like design language. Now, another important step was reducing the perceived quality gap between collection, which was indeed a weakness of the brand. While the Black Bay had evolved significantly, models like the Royal were often seen as being a bit behind the rest of the lineup. Well, I think that changed with the latest update. By introducing manufacturer movements across the Royal collection, Tudor made a clear statement. They are no longer reserving their best technology or movements only for their dive watches. And these are the kind of updates that may look small from the outside or boring to the watch community, but are extremely important for a brand trying to build consistency. And speaking of consistency, the Black Bay received some of the most meaningful refinements, which I think were super important to justify the price point of the line. The slimmer Black Bay 58 case, improved proportions, bracelet options with T-fit adjustment, and the introduction of METAS master chronometer certification are all very precise upgrades and with clear intentions. So in short, I really do think that every release served a clear purpose to launch the brand's independence, close the quality gap between the collections, and further reinforce Tudor's position in the diverse watch market. Well, the last brand I quickly want to highlight before we wrap it up is actually not because of a release of their own, but rather because of a collaboration. I want to talk about this because to me, this collaboration showed something really interesting about Omega that many of its critics often, I think, overlook. After the Morgan Stanley watch report, Omega came under heavy criticism, and many self-proclaimed watch experts on YouTube who probably had never spent a single day working with Omega or in general in the watch industry already had a solution. Omega needs a slimmer collection, way less limited edition, and that the brand should drop the prices because it does not have the same brand pull as some of its competitors. And I remember making a video explaining why, first of all, the Morgan Stanley watch report should not be treated as the ultimate authority, and to be honest, is something that you just can throw away. I also explained that many of the things critics complain about are actually the very reason Omega became so successful in the first place. But as I said back then, you have to have worked with the brand to understand this approach. Well, just a few days ago, Swatch released another collaboration with Omega, a limited edition of the Moon Swatch of 1,969 pieces. And to be honest, I was really curious how it will do because of its price point. I mean, if you consider that the watch was priced at, I think, 500, I mean, this is quite critical. But guess what? Omega received over 1.2 million applications, which is roughly the population of an entire country. And we saw that Swatch tried it with Blaupa, and no one cares about Blaupa. And some people would not even pay 500 for a real Blaupa. Now, what does this say about Omega? Omega has not an image problem at all, or that the brand power is too weak, because it proved that the brand is way more relevant than some people think. I still stand by my opinion, because I actually truly believe Omega is undervalued because they make exceptional products. But as one of my subscribers perfectly pointed out, Omega's biggest problem is that their marketing is somehow still stuck in 2008. And having worked with the Swatch Group for several years, it was to me a mystery why not more of that marketing budget has not been shifted towards Omega. Because Omega simply has a stronger product lineup and, in my opinion, a far greater long-term potential. But nevertheless, Omega remains very relevant through a watch it did not even manufacture, which once again speaks to the strength of the brand and its importance in the world of watches. Now, the brands I spoke about are not necessarily the biggest winners in terms of revenue or sales, but they are winners because everything they are doing feels purposeful and driven by a clear long-term vision for the brand. And those are not releases that, as I said, are super exciting for the watch community or watch enthusiasts, but are super important for the brand's evolution. To be honest, I appreciate this approach way more than instead of simply making the same watch thinner and thinner or adding more and more complications to an existing collection. These brands, they are focusing on what really matters to most buyers. Wearability, usability, timeless design, and of course, offering genuine value for their money. That said, the year is far from over, and I'm genuinely curious to see what the remaining months will bring. Maybe there are still a few surprises waiting for us, although judging by the current state of the watch industry, I would not necessarily bet on it. So that's it for today, and I'm curious, what was for you the most important release or the one you celebrated the most? In the meantime, if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But for now, thank you for tuning in today. Stay blessed and see you next time.